So, hello people, welcome back to my channel. This is Ranjiraj and hope you have enjoyed the previous two sessions of Python skill series. So, this is the third session or the third video in Python skill series. So, before we start with today's video, so if you are a new visitor who is watching this video for the first time, so this is my main channel. So where I teach different topics on machine learning as well as the deep learning. And so this Python skill series is mainly for the implementation of all these concepts that we have learned so far. So you have these many like sessions, different concepts I have discussed, and also I conduct different Q&A sessions in each and every month. And these are the different playlists which you can find in my channel. Yeah, so well, that was all regarding the promotion of my channel. So well, back to today's session. Yeah, so today we'll be dealing with or we'll be discussing regarding the decision control in Python 3. So likewise, I always say before, if you have a programming language background previously like in C, C++ or Java, then you might have used it. So at the end of this session, we'll write a code or we'll write a program for some application. It will be a toy problem, not a real life application program, but will be simple example based upon all the concepts which we have discussed today so far. So without any further ado, let's get started. So first of all, our today's discussion will be based on modules. So what are basically modules in Python? So module is nothing but a py file, that is a .python file, which consists of some Python codes, which we have seen so far, like things like that are there in that. And this further has some functions, classes, variables. So if you have a Java background, then you might have something called as a package. So in package, you have different objects, classes, variables, and things and so on. So it is similar to a template. So here you can mainly do the reusability. So that is the main functionality for any programming languages. And so Python by default supports the reusability concept. So for example, you have something like a module called as math.py, which will mainly give you some functionalities like to calculate the square root or to calculate the power, to calculate the absolute value or to calculate the GCD or to calculate the LCM, then HCF, highest common factor, and so on. So these things were not, or some of these things were not present in the other programming languages by default, but Python has a very rich library of mathematical functions. So math.py is one such function or a module, in fact. So if you want to get to know the details about like all these functions, so what you can do is basically you can write a method like there is a method called as help. So it's a built-in function, so you can see the description. So basically if you write like we have something called as factorial, so we have seen this before. So if you run this, okay, I guess we have to, yeah, we have to write this first. Yeah, so it was due to this input statement that I have not written. So this kind of things will happen. So once in a while, if you are writing any math program, so make sure like you write the statement that is from math, import all the packages or all the methods that are available. So likewise, when I did the help on factorial, so factorial is a built-in function for calculating the factorial. Similarly, you have something called as GCD. So GCD, that is the greatest common divisor. Then you have SQRT, which also we have used, that is the square root of any value x. And then we have power. And so likewise many other different mathematical functions which are there defined in these, that is math.py file, that you can freely use in your program throughout. So that is basically all about the modules. So this is an important concept you have to keep in mind when you like build very large application or any other uh, techniques or for any other implementation. So you don't write the code from the scratch. Instead, you will be importing some libraries and then you will be reusing it according to your application. So that is a basic motive behind this discussion. So now let us discuss something about what is called as separator and end setter in print. So we already know, like we have seen the print statement or the print method. What it basically does is it will print something like this. So this is the basic job of the print function, to write anything. Now let's say, for example, if I write or if I take two variables, say I have x is equal to 10 and I have y is equal to 20, and I want to print this. So I want to print the value of x and print the value of y. So what I obtain is something like this: 10 and 20, one below other. So below 10 you have 20. So but my requirement is like I want 10 and 20 in one straight line. So how do I do that? So a simple way is like you can write x comma y, since both these are values, and I'll just comment this, and if I run this, 10 and 20. So that is simple. But now my one more requirement is that I need a separator so that it will separate 10 from 20, and there is some white space in between this 10 and 20. So if you can make out that there is some gap between 10 and 20, I want to remove that. So for that we mainly use something called as a separator. So it is a parameter that you pass into the print function. So separator is mainly used for two different values. So like you have value x and value y. In order to separate these two different values, you mainly use separator. Now how it is done? So you write something sep is equal to, and if I want to say I want to separate with the help of comma, and if I run this, you can see that the white space which was there earlier has been replaced by this comma. So this is the job for the separator. So accordingly in your program, like whatever you do, like if you want to calculate like first 10 odd numbers or natural numbers or anything like that, but it will generate in like vertical fashion. So if you want in a horizontal way, you mainly use this separator and you do this kind of technique or this programming practice. Now next thing is called as the end setter. So what is end setter? And I've written end setter for two different print statements. So essentially I would like to change this print and I'll write end setter inside this. Now if I run this, ideally now this will be 1020, but end setter it should come below this. Yes. Now what my requirement is, I don't want end setter to be in the next line. Instead, it should be after this. So after 10 to 10 comma 20, I want to print end setter. So how we can do that? So for that, we mainly write the end. So that is also another parameter. So you can see the description also. So if I write end with space, and if I just run this, so your requirement is fulfilled, 10 comma 20 with space in between and then the end setter. So the basic aim of this discussion was like separator works between two different values, variable values or string values, boolean values, anything like that. And the end setter is mainly used for the print statements, that is to print two separate print statements in the console, not in a vertical fashion but in a horizontal way. Now what we do is we'll take one simple example. Now this example is mainly to calculate the first n natural numbers. So that is very simple, just a few lines of code, you need not write very much. So what we basically do is we want to print uh, the first n natural numbers. N is specified by the user, so we will be not doing any hard code, like we will be not doing any static programming in this. Everything will be dynamic. So let's begin. So what I do is I take a variable that is n, and I write this uh, input. So if you already know, like we have done this before, input, standard input. So it takes input from the user. So I'll write enter value for n. So it is it takes value from the user. Now one more thing I mentioned, like whatever objects you take input from the user or anything, it will be by default considered as a string in Python. So for that we need to do the typecasting or the type setting. So for that, what we'll do is we'll just do the casting in integer. So whatever value we type, whether it's 10 or 20, it will be converted into integer value so that it understands the Python compiler and will do the work accordingly. Now what I do is I want to print the natural numbers from 1. So that one thing will do as a static thing in this. So what I do is I take a variable that is I is equal to 1, and if you know, like we have the while statement, so we will use a while statement here. So like we'll write while I less than or equal to we have this n which is taken from the user, and you can see the indentation line. So when I entered from here to this line, the cursor went here. So indentation matters very much in Python. If you don't follow the indentation, or if you write like one below the other like you do in other programming languages, you'll definitely get some indentation error. So make sure you don't do that indentation error here. Now our main goal is like to print all the values, so we'll essentially write print I, that is I will be iterated, so I will be 1 2 3 and so on. And then we'll write the end statement, so end is equal to like this. We can also write the separator in this way, like with single quotes. We can also write with double quotes. So this is just to make sure like we can do in this way also, just for that purpose. And then after this printing, what we need to do is we need to increment the value of I. So instead of writing I is equal to I plus 1, we'll mainly use the compound assignment operator, compound addition assignment operator. If you have watched my previous video, we have discussed in that. So we'll mainly use that, and I guess we are ready to run this. So what I do is I'll generate first 20 natural numbers. So you can see the output, that is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 and so on up till 20. So the main use of this end setter is basically like if you have not written like this, or we can do that activity also, or if you just printed I, what would happen is like, and if I write 20, then it will generate like this. So it basically increases your like screen space, so that is not good. Instead, if it can print in a horizontal way, then we'll go with that. So that is fine for us. So we have like this. So if I generate, oh I'm sorry, okay, so till 10 it will generate the first 10 natural numbers. That was simple. Now what if we want to generate the natural numbers in a reverse order? So that is very simple. So consider that as an assignment. If you would like to do that, please do that. So that will be a small assignment from my side. If you have understood the logic, just you have to print these numbers in the reverse order. Like if it is till 10, you have to print 10 9 8 7 6 5 4 3 2 1. So I'll put the solution in the notebook, so you can check there, but make sure you do a programming practice from your side. It's very simple, just a simple logic you have to do. And just a small clue, instead of this increment, you will do the decrement. Like you have to go from back. Like if you have 10, it will be 987. So that is a small clue for this. So rest you can do. I hope you can do it. Yeah. So well, that was the discussion for the separator and the end setter. Now what we have something called as formatted print. Now this formatted print is more or like familiar to like it's similar to the format specifiers in C programming language. So those who have a C background, C programming background, for them this is like easy, or they can easily catch up with this. Like in C programming language, what we basically did is if we want to print a integer number, we basically write %d, or if you want to print a number or string, in fact, we write %s. For a character, we write %c. For any float value, we write %f. So this one extension to C programming language is also adopted in Python, and so it also works in that way only. So it has same syntax and same semantics as compared to C language. So earlier what we used to do is for printing any value we would just write comma y or comma x like that. So this has one special application, like if you want to print a series of values, so you basically just encapsulate into a bracket, and when you apply this formatted print statement, so that we'll see in one example in this video itself later. So this is just a small discussion on formatted print. Now what we have is something called as replacement operator. So this is the most important concept in many applications, especially when you do the speech to text conversion. So I mainly use this replacement operator, not as in like separately, but I have an application for speech to text, like when I mainly generate the subtitles for my video. So it's like a time consuming activity. So I have a Python code. So it will generate the subtitles and it will import to a file. So that I mainly use to like do the transcribing of my videos. So a replacement operator is one main thing like you used in speech to text conversion. So let's see how this replacement operator is implemented in Python. So it's very simple. So for that, what we have is we'll take one example, a simple example. So similar kind of structure is followed there also. Like if you say for example, if I have uh, uh, pronounced a word twice, and if my compiler has generated twice, then it will show like these are two redundant like alphabets or two redundant words. So you need to essentially delete that, or if you want to separate it by comma, then you have to do it manually. So for such kind of scenarios in places like that, when it happens, it obviously happens even in this session also. So we mainly use this replacement operator. So it is one of the most essential things when you have any applications like speech to text conversion. So it is a worth to watch this. So just don't go anywhere. So just stick to here. So this is the important part that is coming up. So what we do is we'll take some variable, like say we have a, and in a we have say some address. We want to print the address of some place. So I write Saxony and Halt. So this is the place where I stay, not the place, this is actually the state in Germany. And then what I have is I have some variables like latitude, and the latitude is something like 51.9503 to the north. And then you have the longitude value, and it is something like 11.6923, and it is to the east. So it is somewhat in the north to east in that direction. Now comes the main part. Now these were the inputs so far, that is the variables. Now what I want to do is I want to print the address. So address is given like this. So replacement operator is mainly characterized by this curly braces. So that is for the replacement of any space in between, any like space or any white spaces which is there occurring in between. So it is mainly used that. And we have this latitude. So latitude is also given in this way, and longitude, and it is written in this way. And after whatever you write inside this print statement, so everything has to be written inside the print statement, nothing outside. And then after this print or this particular string which you have from inside this double quotes, after this you mainly use a function called as format. Now you can read from here format. It formats the specific default value to empty string, and so on. You can read that documentation. And so what I do is I'll write the uh, variable, that is the first variable, and then I have latitude, and then I have longitude. So if I run this, you get this something like this. So address is Saxony and Holt, and latitude is so and so to the north, longitude is so and so to the east. So this is one important thing where it is used in the real world application in speech to text recognition or in conversion as well. So now let me remind you, like this also takes some index positions. So this is by default from 0, 1 and 2. So if I have say if I take, so this is 1, 2 and 3, or 0, 1, 2 and 3. So if I take like this, or if I do like this, and if I print, so it changed, right? So longitude, so this was 0, 1 and 2. So in place of longitude went the Saxonian halt, and in place of latitude, that was there originally 51 point. So it took the same position, but in place of address it went like this. So if these kind of misplaces happen in your bucketing or stuffs like that, you mainly go with the replacement operator. So that was a discussion for replacement operator. So this is one important thing which is used in practical applications. Now, so far on the discussion we have done so far, what we'll do is we'll try to write a program. So now this will be a very like toy problem, like in from mathematics we'll mainly use. So we have learnt about the module, separator, and setter, formatted, print, and replacement operator. We'll not use a replacement operator in this problem, but this will be mainly to calculate the square roots of quadratic equation. So first I'll write this program without formatted string. So formatted string is just used to represent like how we can use this. So uh, we'll write that program. So for this you need to import the math from math import dot star. So what I write is I need to take three variables. Like if you remember, quadratic equation is of the form ax square plus bx plus c. So in machine learning or in any other programming languages, you mainly have all these convex types of equations, which is there, like parabolic shaped or bell curve stuffs like that. So mainly in some part of that, you if you want to calculate the square root of some values, or if you want some intermediate values in between some process, you mainly run a script of this in between. So for that I'm taking this example. It's just a toy problem. If you know it very well, you can do it by hand, but uh, let us see how it is done or it is implemented in Python 3. So uh, we write, first of all we want to take everything from the user, so everything will be input. So enter value for a. So we want three parameters a, b, c, and again it will be taken as integer, considered as integer. So we want to convert this into so everything will be considered as string. We want to convert it into float. So we will do a type conversion or type casting here. So this was for A, and similarly for B and C. So we have ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0. We have equation like that. And so we'll take this and we'll just replace this. we will keep it dynamic. Okay. Hmm. Now what we want to do is we need to check the determinant of any value. So based on the determinant, we'll just input that into our equation minus b plus minus square root of b square minus 4ac upon 2a. Things like that are there. So we'll do it in step by step way. So mainly we now do the determinant calculation. So for that I'll take a variable d, and we have b square minus 4ac. Then we check that value with greater than 0 or equal to 0 or less than 0, stuffs like that. So first, to calculate b square minus 4ac, we'll just focus on b square. So how we will represent b square? So we can do it in two ways. Like whatever b you can you get from the input stream, you just take like double star and do like this. So you can do this way. This is one way. Or instead, since we have this, we have learned this module, so why don't we consider this power function? So we can write POW here, and inside POW we have this. For b we have square, and then you have b square minus 4 times a and c, a and c. So that is very simple. So you have the determinant value. Now it will compute the determinant value. So let us print this one by one and see. So this is a very good practice if you want to do debugging. So mainly if you run into some problem, what you basically do is you just comment all the other lines of code and you do the debugging. So debugging is done one by one, like uh, every statement is being printed or not. So I have some values by default, else we'll be getting the similar output every time. So I have value for a as 1. Sorry, I'm sorry. It should not be here. Value for a is 1. We have another value for b, that is 4, and then we have for c. We get the determinant as 4.0. Why? Because we have converted it to float. That is the typecasting, type conversion we did. So we have b square, that is 4 square 16, minus 4 times a into c. A was 1 into 3, and so we get the same value, determinant as 4. So b square minus 4ac value is this. Now what we do is, since it's a discussion for decision statements or decision control, we mainly use the if else. Now remember, in Python we don't have do while, or we don't have switch statements. Instead we'll use the if and else if, things like that. So that will mainly see in this particular session or in this program. So if the value of d, that is greater than 0, if this is the case, then we want two roots. It will always give you two roots. Like if you have, say, like if you take minus 2, then it will have two roots. Or say, like if it is 4, then it will have plus 2 and minus 2. Or if it is minus 4 also, you get the same. So in that case you need to have two values. So what I write is, this will be the first root, so it will be minus b, whatever is this, plus sqrt of d, square root of d minus b, plus minus square root of that entire thing, b square minus 4ac. So b square minus 4ac is contained in d. So similar approaches followed here, and then we have like this. So this is one root with minus b plus. Now what we want to do is we want to uh, take the negative, so that is r2. So that is minus b minus square root of d, and this will be similar. So that is simple. Then we have the print statement. So we have root 1. So root 1 is given as like this, and we have this value r1, and then we have root 2. So we'll write it as and root 2 here as it is, and then we have some space in between, and then we have this value that is R2. Okay, so and then if this is the case, then we say like the roots are real and they are different. So one more print just to convey the conclusion of or the nature of roots. So roots are real and different. So this completes one part of the if statement. Now what we have is if this is not the case, or if b square minus 4ac is equal to 0, then we have something called as roots are real and equal. So that changes the nature of the roots. So for that uh, we mainly use else if, not else if, we have something called as elif. So if you have a programming background in like Java or C, C++, then there you mainly use the else if ladder or stuffs like that. But here it is simple, just elif. So in elif you mainly write the condition. So the syntax is like this. So here in this case, elif d is equal to 0. Then just don't forget, like you have to write a colon here so that it is marked as the end of the control statement, decision control. Now what we have is for this case again we have to take the roots, but those two are equal. So R1 is equal to R2 and it will be minus B by 2 times of A. So we have something like this, and then we write the print statement. So it will be root of 1 is equal to this will be 1, and similarly you have this thing. I guess we have to take this itself. We'll copy this twice and we'll just save some time, else it will be very long video. So just we have to do this thing again, and here it will be not different, instead it will be equal because we have both R1 and R2 as equal. Next, if this is also not the case, then we have the final case, that is else. So else we have something called as like imaginary when the roots are complex. So for that we have the real part and imaginary part. So we'll do the computation. So that computation is similar to here. So this is the real part of this. Okay. This is the real part, and then you have the imaginary part. So imaginary part is given as like you calculate the square root from the math module and square root of minus d, and it will be divided by 2 times of a. So this completes the real part and imaginary part calculation. Now what we do is we'll just print the real part, real value. So real value is or the real part is we have real, real, and similarly for imaginary part we have img, img imaginary part. So this is just for to check like we are getting the correct real and correct imaginary values. Like if you do hand calculations in your notebook, then it should match with this program. So for that basic sanity check we do this. This is optional, just our end result depends upon like we get this or arrive at this condition for the given inputs, that is the main thing. And now we want to print the roots. Now this printing is a little bit like you have to care in this, like this is not the same, but you have to print some extra stuffs in this. So it will be root of root 1, that is first root will be it basically consists of two parts, so real part and imaginary part. So you have to do that carefully. So instead of this R1 we have this real part, and then you have, say if you have two values, like if you get the output as 2 plus minus 3i, then first root will be 2 plus 3i and second part will be 2 minus 3i. So similar thing we want to do it, but we have the real part, then we'll just type something like this plus, and then we have this imaginary part, so that is the value, and this plus that we are hard coding here, and then we have after this one I is there, so that characterizes there is a complex number. And similarly for root 2 we have same thing, just things are different here. So now here what we want to do is we want to calculate the real part. So real part, that is a value, then you have the imaginary part, but it should be the opposite. So what value you obtain here, it should not be that, just the you have to change the sign. So for changing the sign, what we basically do is we put a minus in front of this, so that is the imaginary part. And then you have the I value, just to characterize that it's a complex number, and we say the roots are imaginary. Yes, so what we do now is we just run for this program and we'll check everything works fine and we get the output. Okay, invalid syntax. We have some mistakes here. Hmm. So we have root 1 is equal to r1 and root 2 is equal to r2. Hmm. So these things happen, so in programming you should be very careful while you type this. Okay, and root 2 is equal to r2. Hmm. Hmm. Okay. I think okay, we have to do the debugging here. So maybe it is because of, like, if you have noticed, like I have missed a bracket here, so it was because of that, but this was absolutely perfect. So now we are about to launch our program. So value for A as -2 and value for B as 7, and value for C let us take as 4, and we get the determinant as 81. And the root what we get is we get this kind of roots, so it is real and different. So now let us take some other values so we can again check what will be the output. So now what we take is let us run for one case of imaginary. So I have some predefined, like I have noted down. So let us take value for A as 1, B as -4, and then for C I have 13. So we get the root, that is roots are imaginary, and we get the root that is 2 plus 3i, and there should be some space in between this, so that was because of I have not put a space here, and you get 2 minus 3i. Let us run this for one more, that is I have 1, and then I have 4, and then I have 5. Yeah, so now this is clear. That is, if you have two roots, it will be -2 plus I, that is 1i, and -2 minus I. So this was the major motive of how to use the modules and its functions. These if, elif and else are the decision controls that is mainly used in Python, and we have seen the formatting and stuffs like this. And I just discussed about the formatted print. So that formatted print is it looks something like this. So this is the same code for a quadratic equation root finding with the help of formatted string. So here what we mainly use is like instead of this here, so here what we did is we have this we wrote minus like comma d. That was a usual thing what we practice in Python, but instead in formatted string what we mainly write is for value we have %g, %d, things like this. And if you want to print a set of values, you can basically use this. So you can combine them with the help of a parenthesis and then you can print the value. So this percentage symbol characterizes like that is a set of values, two different values to print. So I'll share this program also in the notebook. You can try this. It is very simple. So well, this was all regarding the session of decision control in Python. So hope you enjoyed this video. If you found you got educated about this video, please do like, share, comment, and if you are new to this channel, please consider subscribing. Thank you very much for watching this video.